Welcome, I'm Matt Ryan from the Moderated by Matt YouTube channel. You can catch this Q&A up in a few days. I'm so glad you're here with the Oscar-nominated directing short, Children No More, Were and Are Gone. So please welcome to the Lumiere cinema stage, director Hilla Medalia.
Thank you. Thanks for being here on 11 a.m. on Monday morning with a lot of rain.
Let's go back to the beginning. What initially drew you to the project?
It's been, I live in Tel Aviv, and all this time I was thinking, what's my role as a documentary filmmaker? What kind of story I need to tell? And when I first experienced the vigil, I thought I was so struck by the power of the silence, by the bravery of the activists, and of course by these images of those kids who, were killed, and how it really upset people, that for some people they even seem like a betrayal, which is something that was, unimaginable for me.
Yeah, I always felt that silence is stronger than screaming when you're an activist. So what went into how you can approach the filmmaking part of it? How did you want to tell your story? It was a very observational style, using the silence in the beginning. When went to those decisions to start the film?
So first of all, I felt the urgency of getting the film out really quickly, because we don't see these images and what's happening in Gaza, in Israel. And even these activists are not being covered by the press internally. For a very long time, there was nobody, even covering Gaza. I mean, after a year, there was a little bit, but really, and I feel that, that these activists are bringing this voice that is not existing. And I felt that our role, my role, is to do that, to observe them and give them the stage that it's so needed. So we thought we should do it as quickly as it can, and we didn't even wait to raise money, or we basically just went out. And we were lucky that Sky and Albi joined us pretty quickly, and so we were really able to do it. But the war was still happening, and I really just felt that I need to, get it as quickly as possible. So we right away thought about a short, because it's much kind of faster. And then, the originally we thought very simple, to basically kind of give the audience the experience of the vigil, because it was so profoundly strong. And the demonstration against the government started actually a year before the war. So it's been going on, or longer even. It's been going on for a long time. And then when the war started, there were the demonstration was a lot about return the hostage, stop the war, but it was never because of what's happening in Gaza and the innocent people that are being killed and the destruction. It was never about that. So in that sense, there was a real urgency. And again, also the other thoughts, like, how do you not stay complicit? What do you do? I actually, even yesterday here in LA, I had a conversation with someone who was telling me about how depressed she is, about what's happening, and kind of the moral low of the world. And I told her, one thing I learned is that even a really small act could actually be extremely meaningful, and I think we should all remember that. Anyway, so we went into a short. We did it quite quickly, and then after I forgot how many shooting days, but pretty quickly they started going outside the space of the anti-government, anti-war demonstration, and then it became more violent, and it kind of opened up the narrative and brought really a bigger story in my mind, in a way.
The scenes that really affected me were the scenes of researching the children's names, so they're not just a statistic. And just the pain of that, trying to find their names, give them at least acknowledgement other than a stat. What went into those scenes, those to me were really affected me emotionally.
So I have to admit that actually before the war, I started researching a film about the Diergov, the activist that is searching the name of the kids. She started doing it actually in 2020. She has a webpage, the Daily Brief, where she reports everything that is happening in the in the West Bank and Gaza, and we don't get this information in Israel. By the way, not even in the West and not even in Palestine, because there's so many things that are, for even for Palestinians, are like small, and so they don't report. So she really started that, and we wanted to do this 24 hours in the West Bank. But by the time we made a trailer and finished the research, we did a day on June 13, and I was shocked, like how much violence. And anyway, then the war started, and there was nobody who would ever finance a film like that. So I've been following Adi, and she's really incredible because, first of all, she knows Arabic, and she's able to do all the cross references, both on the Palestinian sites and the Arabic media, and then also, of course, in Israel and internationally. And she's extremely thorough. She goes under a lot of pressure for extreme right-wing organizations. She has no room for errors, and she does a lot of checking. And also, I have to say that because the film is touching upon an issue that it's quite controversial and difficult for some people, so we also checked every single thing. Because, for example, so we went so every single picture and every single number was also checked and cross-checked by us. And I have to say that as of, I just actually looked it up, and January 30th, the IDF actually confirmed all the numbers, and they confirmed that it's more than 71,000 Palestinians in Gaza that were killed since in the war, and that's not including the people who are still under, that are buried under the gravel. So, but it's incredible the amount of work that put into finding the information and be accurate with it.
Also, the scene where the women activists were basically, debating how to approach, how to address the issue about not creating more polarization between both sides, more understanding between both sides. What went to that scene and that sequence when they were debating about how they were actually going to handle the activism, the protest?
So actually, that was the very first shooting day. We came to a meeting of the group, and then there was a siren. So I think that's why this scene also made it to the film, because generally the approach was to not focus on the activist and the work, but staying with individual and focusing on the children and the message. But I think what's really incredible, there are so many incredible things about the activists, and I have to say that they're doing a lot of things beyond the vigil, and the vigil is something very organically and spontaneous that happened, and it's hierarchy. It's mainly run by women there, and but I think that what's also very interesting is how they are changing and adjusting the vigil to the needs, and the vigil is still happening. And for example, there was, it was winter and very cold, and a lot of people in Gaza living in tents. So there was time that there was a focus of that, like a lot of children actually were killed from hypothermia and other things. And so they really adjust, the message and what they're doing to really the most urgent need. And, and I have to remind everybody that the war ended, but since the war, there are more than 550 people who were killed in Gaza. So there is still very much, there is still a lot of violence that's still happening in Gaza, and the West Bank is also very tragic. So they're really doing a lot of things and adjusting the work to what's needed.
And obviously, when they're actually doing the protest, you have a lot of passerbys, people, screaming at them, different levels of, criticizing them for supporting the kids, the Palestinian kids that have perished. What did you and your cinematographer approach that to try to capture these moments, these very tense moments?
It was, of course, when we were there, we were witnessing and we tried to observe and get the feeling of the vigil. That was kind of our goal. But of course, when people reacted so strongly and violently to them, we were there. I mean, it was complicated because you need to make sure that people are fine, that you're shooting and all that side of things. But you know, it was hard. But I think what actually I would like to focus on that moment is how the activists are not reacting and are keeping to, like, standing still. That was like the hardest thing for me. Like, I really wanted to scream and push and engage in an argument, but they are keeping their stillness, and they have those, they call them peacekeepers, who are standing and are trying to you know, talk to these people and engage in conversation and making sure that the activists that are, you know, the people who are standing with the picture are safe. And I felt that was also a really interesting concept, and we capture some of those conversations. And I think there is something so special in the fact that, you know, there are no slogan. It's really the pictures of the kids, informations about them, and the word, you know, was and is gone and is no more, where and is no more. And I think there is something that is inviting for a dialogue. And that was also extremely special to me in this moment where they're getting so much heat and real violence, and they're really pushing to engage in a conversation despite that.
Were there any challenges in editing that sequence? Did you have to cut things out, that, you know, the interactions, or did you have so much footage you had to sift through? What was the challenges of editing and maybe cutting something that, you know, didn't feel you could put?
So that scene near the beach, actually, the whole vigil at that moment was about 20 minutes, start to finish, because it was so violent, and they decided to leave very quickly. So there was really what you saw is almost all that we got from that day. And Sky kept saying, "Oh, maybe there is another conversation." Maybe, and there was just no, because we were like really running between what's happening there. But of course, you know, we shoot a lot in general, and a lot is staying on the cutting floor, and it's always you know, and also we did it so quickly. So I look at it, it's like, should I shorten here and should I? But that's, I guess that's always, but especially that, you know, we started filming in June, mid-June, and on September 23rd, it was already in theaters in LA, and November, we premiered at Dock and Way C. It was extremely fast. Compared to everyone else that is nominated, that, you know, been around for a year, did all this, we were really quick and really late in the game, and actually only like 2 weeks ago, something like that, we had an opportunity to screen in Israel, which was extremely meaningful.
I was going to ask about that. But one of the things I really loved about the film was when you had a lot of conflict and tension in the film, but you always returned, even at the end, to the photos of the kids and the silence. Was that always just like you, especially with the end, you always like, you knew you wanted to end the film and, you know, do the whole entire film, but always returning to the kids and keep it focused on them?
Because I think that's the most important. You know, I look at these kids, and, you know, on all the poster, there is another thing that we didn't translate, that it's me'oravim be'al korcham, involved against their will. And none of these kids choose to be part of this conflict. None of them choose to of course, I mean, they were, you know, they're innocent children, and I'm hoping that every person, doesn't matter what's your political opinion or where you're from, can look at these photos of these children and really feel something in their heart and understand that they should not have been killed, and they should be alive here with us today.
You had some really good veteran collaborators. Sheila Nevins, for example, Hilla Medalia. What did they bring to the project?
So Sheila, you know, was with me from the first day. I mean, I've done a lot of work with her in the past. She actually bought my student film 20 plus years ago. I've done a lot of work with her, and she really pushed me. She's really the soul and heart behind the film. I mean, you know, we always talk about politics, and she, you know, talks about what's happening, you know, in the world, but in specifically, in Palestine and Israel. And when, one of our discussion was about the day and about the vigil, and she actually then read about them, and she kept telling me, you got to make this film, you got to make this film. So really, she, I can even say, initiated the whole, and really pushed me all through and was extremely involved. Like after, I think the first day I was shooting, I cut a scene and I sent her, or after the second day, and she told me, we got to finish it quickly, qualify, what I mean? And she was really kind of pushing us all through, and extremely involved and still involved in everything that we do.
You mentioned you screened it in Israel. What has been the reaction when you screened it in Israel?
So originally I was going to wait for one of the festivals, but the minute it was nominated, which was extremely, honored and surprised, and so we thought we must show it in Israel right away. I mean, of course, for all the activists, but in general, the film has a different purpose outside Israel and inside Israel, and there is, and maybe it's even more important locally. And of course, the fact that we're nominated really helped to get it to people, both in the United States and in Israel. In the United States, it's part of this roadside attraction release, so it's in 248 theaters around the country. And in Israel, there is a different purpose, but the fact that we are nominated really helped us to get it to the audience. People want to see what it is all about. So it was very special. Of course, there were a lot of activists who came, and we did a really incredible Q&A after it, but it was a 500-seat theater with no single seat empty. So actually, I'm going home for a week between now and the awards, and we'll have a lot of screenings. Also, I have, I think, 2 screenings a day, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm also ready for difficult conversation. I'm not afraid of it. I learned from the activists to not scream, though I really want some time to scream, but I think that that's really important thing to understand that it's part of what we need to do. And the activist said, we did a Q&A in New York after the premiere of Doc NYC, and someone at the audience asked, what do you do if someone really close to you is not thinking like you? And one of the activists said that actually her parents are not politically aligned with her, and she said how she is always like trying to be calm and listen and not get into a fight and hoping that something will crack and it will change. So I think that's what, so we'll see more, we just had this one screening, which was really, really good, and hopefully there'll be more. Oh, and I wanted to mention another collaborative, Hilla Medalia, who I actually produced a film about her mother that she directed called Ada, My Mother, the Architect. Once things went so quickly with this film, and I felt I really need more support, and got her involved, and so that's another one, and of course Hilla.
Now, a lot of the film was a conflict between supporting, the criticism, supporting the children, and not, supporting the hostages. Do you feel now with the Israeli hostages coming, came home, do you think it'll help the conversation now, where people will be less polarized and maybe more open to the discussion, since that side of it, has changed? Unfortunately,
I don't think, but I mean, of course, time changes, and I think what's happening is changing, the discourse and the conversation, but unfortunately, it's extremely polarized, and it's, it's so easy to be blind and to not look. And I think that we need to remember that there is, truth, speaking truth to power is extremely important in Israel and everywhere. And I think that, and as I said before, it's also the fact that we do have power to change, and we should not just sit and be passive, but actually every little thing helps, and everyone can do something that, some people can do a lot, and some people can just come to protest or do something, and or speak to people, and it's extremely important.
Well, it's a beautiful film, and I think I really appreciate you being able to share such your deep personal insights and to make it. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.